Chapter 2, Throwing Good Money After Bad. It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. It's a quote by John Wooden. This book is not a how to guide to getting out of your debts. It's not intended to show you how to get out of bills you rightly owe, but to give you an insight into how the system really works. Bottom line, if you don't pay your bills, we all end up paying them in the long run. Credit card companies, banks, mortgage companies, retailers, they'll just pass along their higher cost of doing business in the form of higher prices. It doesn't matter if they lost money because of greed or stupidity. They'll simply pass along the losses to all of us. Someone's got to pay. Sooner or later, you're going to reach a point in your life when you are going to reevaluate your situation without guilt or emotion. The late great Howard Cosell once said, "What's popular isn't always right, and what's right isn't always popular." Those words are more true today than when he first said them almost 40 years ago. Whenever you make a decision based on emotion, you are increasing the chances of it backfiring and creating a bigger mess. You'll start stacking one bad choice on top of another. The harder you try to do the right thing, the worse it gets. It's like struggling to get out of quicksand when in reality, you're accelerating your demise. Debt collectors know this, and they know how to cash in and take advantage of you when you're most vulnerable. They are incredibly talented at pushing the right fear buttons. They can get you to pawn your wedding ring. They anticipate your replies and know exactly what to say to coerce you into sending the grocery or electricity money to them via Western Union's check by phone within the hour. These manipulative bottom feeders know how to scare you into sending them post-dated checks from now until the turn of the century. But for the average, can't wait till payday, wage slave, other things come first. Maybe I'm just being irresponsible, but the way I see it, there are more pressing needs than sending money to the telepunk. Food, mortgage, utilities, insurance, car payments. I purposely omitted credit card payments from my top 5 list because they don't rate, not in the first tier of financial responsibilities, and it's no surprise to the credit card industry either. We recognize that we are pretty far down the priority list, says Edward Scully, vice president of the industry's biggest credit card players, First USA. People are going to pay rent and put food on the table before they pay credit card companies. Our leverage is not that great. With that in mind, it's important to note that the deals you make today with your creditors can and will affect you for the next decade or longer. Learn early in the game to only make deals with the original creditors. Never repay hired gun, third-party debt collectors. Pay a debt collector and you'll regret it for years, as well as retard financial and emotional recovery exponentially. Debt collectors are results-driven animals. They say and do whatever it takes to get you to send them the cash. They promise you that your credit report will be in better shape if you send them the money. They love to make the "I'll delete any and all negative information from your credit report if you pay me" promise. They may even sound semi-rational and even-handed until you stand your ground or question them. Then they'll show their true colors, revert to their true behavior, and do what they do best: intimidate. Only repay the people you owe. Do the best you can to repay your debts, but only pay the original creditor. No matter what the debt collectors tell you, it's your right under federal law to never deal with third-party debt collectors. Fire them and only deal with original creditors. End of story. Have a nice day. However, if you begin repaying the first debt collector that comes calling, your act of ignorance and good intentions will, number 1, open you up to repeated harassment at the hands of this debt collector and others. Number 2, set you up for negative information that will be reported on your credit reports for years to come. Set you up to potentially owe the same debt to the original creditor, even if you have already paid their hired gun debt collector. Sooner or later, your accounts are going to end up in the hands of highly trained and rabid collection agents, armed with more information about you than you could ever imagine. The information superhighway has expanded and accelerated over the last decade. With access to more databases, only a mouse click or two away for today's debt collectors Your willingness to do business with the dark side will put you in a position of weakness faster than ever before. The stakes are just too high to jack around when you are dealing with an industry that's as money driven and ruthless as this one. How you, how you choose to pay your debts will affect virtually every fact of your life for years. Derogatory information on your credit reports not only raises the cost of doing business in the world of credit, from higher interest rates on credit cards to home loans or auto financing, but as reported in my book, Life After Debt in 1993, bad credit can affect your ability to get a job or even insurance. Employers, either current or prospective, may review your credit reports in the job promotion or hiring process. Is this fair? No. But as President Jimmy Carter once said, life is not fair. That's why it's crucial that you understand what's at stake in your game of financial survival. I'm not trying to convince you to avoid I'm not trying to convince you to avoid dealing with a debt collector because I have no use for these lowlifes. I'm trying to educate you about their tactics and show you what will happen if you try to deal with one of them. Let's go back to my home state of Texas for the story of the debt collector that lied and cheated the creditor they were ostensibly collecting for from the it can happen to any of us department. A debt collection agency in Texas collected a debt for one of their creditors and then they went bankrupt. Apparently, the collection agency misappropriated the funds they were collecting for the clients and failed to repay the monies to the original creditors. As a result, the original creditor ended up suing the debtor because they never received their money. The consumer showed their creditor that they did pay the debt to the collection agency, but the original creditor won their case in court. The debtor had to pay the debt twice. Sound unfair? Jimmy was right. Sometimes life is unfair. Injustice is blind. Many times it's deaf and dumb too. But you don't have to be. Do yourself a favor and believe what I'm about to tell you. Avoid the brain damage and repay your debts, but on your terms. Repay your debts to whom you owe the money, but never a third-party debt collector. If you follow just that one piece of advice, you'll save yourself more grief than you could ever imagine.